Cyprus, the island of love, where the sun shines all year long, where the beaches have crystal clear waters and life seems sweet and simple. A place where, well, things might be more complicated than they seem. But if you're a newcomer, fear not, for Cyprus for Beginners is here to help you with information and shed a light on those days that might not seem so sunny and bright after all. On this series, you'll find tips and advice on starting from scratch and keeping a healthy state of mind. Welcome to the first episode of Cyprus for Beginners. Adapting to a new country can be difficult and it might affect our mental well-being. So what to do when you're feeling helpless and everything seems to work in a different way from what you used to? To find the answer to this and other questions, we went to the University of Cyprus in Nicosia and got some professional advice.
I would say, first of all, take a little bit of time to learn about the country you're going to. See what's going on in terms of like the culture, what sort of things are happening in that country, their values of the country a little bit. And then don't expect that everybody would be behaving like you know how to behave or how people have been behaving in your own country. If you focus only on the difficulties or on the differences, then you start to feel very stressed or upset, missing your own culture or country. But if you start to see that, okay, maybe these people don't have exactly the same behaviors that my country does, but that's how they behave in this country, let me do the best that I can, then you're more likely to start to become involved.
Something that helps a lot if you're going to be staying in a new country for a long time is language. Taking the time to learn the language and language proficiency is actually associated with higher levels of happiness in refugees and asylum seekers in general. They don't feel so kind of isolated, and there's less kind of perceived discrimination. Also, you feel more like you're part of the new culture that you're going to in the new country. So I think I would add that as quite an important factor as well.
But what if you find yourself in a situation where you just need to leave your home country without knowing exactly where you would end up going to?
We know that just moving alone is a stressor on its own. So add on to that other life situations and trauma that may have happened, and that complicates the situation even more. So we definitely know that refugees are under more stress than other individuals. So, and we know that the more stressors we have, the more likely it is that people will become psychologically disadvantaged in a way. So one thing that I would say is to see if they can arrange the new life in terms of like things like having support from others, like social support is always very helpful. Finding others who may be in a similar situation and can talk about it. So being willing and open to discuss any sort of difficulties they may have gone through, and seeking that out is always helpful. Of course, we know that financial difficulties is another big stressor. So trying to get a job or finding a way to make ends meet, it's immensely helpful.
Seeking out organizations that are going to help them specifically, like Cyprus European Refugee Council or Refugee Europe groups, so they can be in touch with other people from their own culture as well, who maybe have been here for a little bit longer and can help them kind of with starting up their new life. And I think with regards to children and adolescents, which is what I'm focusing more on, actually making sure that they go to school is really important to help them feel that, you know, there's a sense of belonging, there's a sense of hope, and they can make friends like that. And so they can actually adapt to Cypriot culture a lot faster usually than their parents.
But what to do when we feel excluded or face discrimination?
It may not be fair, it may not be nice, it may not be something we would do maybe ourselves, but we can't really control what other people say or do. we can only control what we choose to do for ourselves. So instead of, a lot of times we focus and ruminate over, what others may have said or have done towards us, and that can be quite stressful, and then it adds on to the stress that we already feel. So one advice maybe that I would give is, okay, if we can't control the behavior of others, we can only control how we behave. So what it is that you would like to do, and what it is that's important to you to do, how would you behave towards others, and what's important to you to be doing in your life, and do that anyway, regardless of what other people may say to you, or what your mind even says to you, but then move towards acting based on what's important to you.
I think it's very true that there is discrimination and social exclusion, social isolation from Cypriots. However, maybe part of that is also perceived discrimination. So trying to be involved and trying to interact with Cypriots might actually bring them closer somehow.
And actually we see that happening a lot of times, that we think people are discriminating towards us, but maybe it's that they don't know. Or it's their own anxiety, or their own fear, or their own kind of difficulty in terms of, how do I interact with somebody that I don't know much about. So I would suggest keep that in mind, that it may not necessarily be discrimination.
Sometimes things might be a bit hard to cope with. It's normal to feel sad or overwhelmed, but try not to let those feelings stop you.
When we are faced with situations that we don't have control over, it's important to see, okay, what it is that we do have control over, and start from there. Even if it's like small things in their daily life, in terms of like who they connect with, who they talk to, even seeking out any sort of opportunity for themselves without waiting for others to provide it for them. I think that's quite important. So I would say seek control and prediction wherever you can. So what it is that you can do to help yourself, your family, your loved ones.
And if you cannot start your life in Cyprus from the same position you had in your home country, that's not necessarily the end of the line.
Yeah, I think that's really hard, because apart from losing professional identity, when you move to a new country, you might also lose your sense of ethnic kind of identity. So there's a lot of stress combined.
I would have them look into themselves a little bit and see what it is that first drew them into this profession, what it is that's important for them to do. So what it is that they loved about their profession or their job. And then I would try to see, okay, if, for example, I was a doctor and I don't have my doctor's license yet, maybe I was drawn into this profession because it's important for me, and it's a value of mine to help people. So is there something I can do to be helpful to people, even if I'm not yet able to practice my own profession? So I would have the people think and look within themselves, what it is that's important to them, what gives their life meaning, and then seek out any sort of opportunity that could be giving them that, or providing that, even if it's not exactly what it is that they were trained to do.
The therapy that we're kind of using is acceptance and commitment therapy, which is sort of accepting my new situation, but looking at my values, what's important to me, what can I do with looking at my other skills. So not only my values, but what other skill set actually maybe would I like to try something new.
Remember to pay attention to your feelings. It's important to know when you should look for professional help.
There are a few things here that somebody can look out for. One is if they're changing, they're not finding meaning in their life. Another is if they feel hopeless. So there's no point in going about or trying or engaging with other people. So if you start to lose hope, then that's something again. Another thing is if how you're feeling interferes with your life, your functionality, how you behave on a daily basis, Also, if you're struggling a lot with your feelings, with your thoughts, and you feel like you're constantly on this battle and it's tiresome and so on, then that's another sign that maybe it's a good time to talk to someone.
To add to what Maria said, something that's obviously for us quite a big sign that someone really needs some support is if they're having thoughts about wanting to end their life, or not really feeling any more in touch with the real world. That's something that we call either dissociation, depersonalization. So sometimes maybe with regards to trauma, having really intrusive memories, distressing dreams, flashbacks of a traumatic event. And refugees unfortunately have a lot of traumatic events that they were exposed to, so it's quite complex. Or even if they start avoiding reminders of the trauma, or suppressing kind of their emotions, having really kind of physiological arousal, hyperarousal, so being really scared to be around people or things. This would be like quite a lot of the symptoms of post-traumatic stress, and so that would need some professional support.